Right, in this last video we're going to address scene organization and I just want to point out that I went and created instances of all my legs, so pretty much anything that I do to one is going to do to any of them. It's usually a good practice that if you know that you're going to have pretty much exact replicas of one thing, just to use instances instead of copies. Again, because if you need to, for some reason, make any changes to any of them, you only have to address one and not all of them individually. So let's start by creating some layers, or at least one layer for this object. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the whole thing. And again, you can create layers here under create a new layer. I'm actually going to click on this one that says create a new layer and assign selected object, so it automatically assigns what I had selected into this layer, and I can just kind of click on it and give it a name. So furniture, the case for this one, save that. And again, the nice thing of having the layers is that you can go ahead and hide something that you don't need at the moment. You also have the freeze it and kind of have it in this kind of wireframe mode that you can't really interact with, or just freeze it and have it in a shaded form. So that's really good. But another thing that I like to do, it's basically create some sort of control for this object, and the reason for that is because it's kind of made up of a bunch of a bunch of different little things, and if I were to try to move it or maybe rotate it, it'll be a little bit difficult because each thing has its own orientation, and it'll kind of move and rotate based on its own axis and not on the collective. So one thing that I like to do is create a control for it, and I'm going to do that by creating a spline that kind of resembles the shape of my couch here, and I'm going to use my outliner to be able to group it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a control with a curve. I'm going to be using the Bezier curve tool. Just kind of start here, and again, this doesn't need to be perfect. Just making sure I create something that resembles the shape of it. Alright, I can always go in there and just kind of fix my my control vertices so it looks a little bit more like the shape of it. Gonna make this one over here into a corner, so something like this will work fine. And again, usually when you create a curve, it's going to start at the floor basically, so it's at 0 right now. So it's basically the couch is pretty much standing on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and select my control and actually call it CTRL and furniture. Okay, just so I know what it is. And again, the outliner, I'll be able to see that my spline control is here. So the next thing I want to do is basically select everything except for my control. And now I want to in my outliner, I want to middle mouse click, and just drag everything into my control furniture right here. And it's basically it basically grouped everything into my control right here. So if I select my control and I want to move everything, everything's going to move, except for this. Apparently I didn't select everything, so I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that it's grouped within this. Alright, so now it's going to work. So if I select my furniture, control is basically going to be able to move everything at once, rotate everything at once, and if I need to, also scale everything at once. Alright, and again, you have to kind of make sure that it's at the floor and the object kind of standing on it, otherwise it's not going to be scaling properly. So now that it has this control, I should be able to, again, if I have a room layout and I need to move this around and make it go to wherever I need to go, everything's going to move along with it. And again, I can always kind of come back here and maybe fix it a little bit so it just kind of follows the shape of it more. But again, it's more like it doesn't need to do that. The purpose of it is to just work as a control so it can move everything at once. I like using splines to group things and make that into controls rather than grouping everything into the axis of one object. And again, it's mostly because in case I need to scale it, just selecting the control is pretty much going to bring everything uniformly, and it's not dependent on one of these objects. Another good practice, especially if you already have placed your object where it needs to be, it's basically freeze transform the object. And by doing that, again, notice that right now position wise on X it's here and on Z it's here, but if I freeze transform it, it basically turns everything to 0. So if for some reason I need to either move it or for some reason scale it, and then I kind of change my mind about it, I can always go back into here and change all this back to the default, and it's as if I wouldn't have done anything. So it just kind of allows you to go back to that default that you were before you started, and you can always freeze transform your settings anytime you want. Okay, so this is the end of the how to model the piece of modern furniture, and I hope this was informative. Thank you for watching.